What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to Big Thing, Capes and Cowls. It is the Friday episode. Man, you think there's anything to talk about this week? Holy crap. We got so much to talk about. Obviously, we haven't had a chance, the three of us here, to talk about the big news with James Gunn heading on over with Peter Safran to run DC for Warner Brothers. We'll talk about that, what it all means, what we think it's going to look like. And I'm sure there's a lot of thoughts and stuff that you guys want to talk about. And even to response to that, Kevin Feige was asked about his thoughts on James Gunn going to run DC, and we'll cover that for sure. We've got so much DC stuff. I mean, Superman, Henry Cavill's coming back, and our buddy Josh Horowitz interviewed him last night. I'm going to play a little bit of that interview, and it's one of the first interviews. I think it was the first public one that he actually talked about what it was like, how it all went down. So we'll get into a little bit of that. Speaking again to DC, Arkham Asylum finds itself finds a creator. There's stuff with speaking of Kevin Feige, by the way, which I didn't mention. He says the X-Men are coming sooner than we think, or he said they're coming soon, and we'll cover that. Boom Studios, they're back. We have a lot of stuff that they have coming out this week that we can't wait to talk about. There's some. Everybody's talking about the Power Rangers comic, by the way. When every time we talked about we were with Boom, everyone's like, well, their Power Rangers run is amazing. So, yes, we're going to talk about Power Rangers as well today. So there's a lot to talk about on today's show, and that's just a few things. And speaking of Black Panther, by the way, that's where Winston and I were last night. I had a chance to see it. We're not going to spoil it. We can't review it. And Coy's going to walk out of the room literally when we start talking about the first reactions of that film. We won't cover it for too long because we're going to cover it pretty extensively on the show once we're able to. So what I will tell you, ladies and gentlemen, I'm very, very excited that we have all the merch up there. A lot of the merch anyway. We've got Capes and Cowls. Right now, Capes and Cowls. I got my Capes and Cowls mug this morning.
Ooh.
It is gorgeous.
Yeah?
It's gorgeous. Yeah.
So that's what I was going to ask you, because you would mention, I see it now because I was ready to buy some stuff and I hadn't seen it on the store yet. So I'm glad that it's there.
Up there, yeah.
No, it's up there now. I'm glad.
Capes and Cowls up there now. So you guys go ahead and check out the merch store, the little iCard that just popped up. That'll get you there. But right now, TeePublic is having a sale. So make sure you do that and check it out. Podcast, big thing on Apple, big thing on Spotify. I cannot emphasize how important it is for you guys to go over there. Even if you watch on YouTube every Friday, please, please, please get the show. We have all of Sith Council on there, all of Capes and Cowls on there, all of Big Thing proper. So please head on over there. All right, everybody, let's get into it. This is the show that we really enjoy doing. We like hanging out with each other. It's a lot of fun.
He says confusedly, "We enjoy this."
We like hanging out with each other, and so I'm glad that you guys are hanging out with us. Let's get into it. Let's get into Capes and Cowls. I'm ready. You ready? Cool. Let's do it. Great. Welcome back, ladies and gents. It is the Big Thing. Kristian Harloff, thank you for joining us. I'm joined as always by Coy Jandro and Winston A. Marshall. What up, boys? How you guys doing?
Excited, man.
Yeah.
Good,
So
bro. That was, what a night.
It was fun. Don't worry, we're not gonna spoil.
We're not. I felt like Coy for a day. It was amazing.
I know, it's true.
You know, we had Black movie premiere, so like I got to be Coy. It was awesome.
I literally live like very close to that area, and walking by was such an experience. No, it was pride. Like it was it was like the positive experience. I was really excited to see everything going up and to see all the symbolism and to see like people get excited. Like it was I don't know. It was like I felt mature for not having FOMO, because I was just like, oh look, those are people having the best time.
What was so interesting about it is the only other one that I've been to recently was Thor.
Yeah.
And just how much of a bigger scale Thor was than Black Panther. And I don't know if that was intentional. They were trying to reduce it. I don't know if
definitely were.
You think it was just too big?
Whatever it might be, or they invited. There was newer people that I had never seen. I mean, there's tons, always new people you haven't seen there,
Sure.
but I think a lot of the influencers are people that I wasn't as familiar with, and there
Saw
was
a lot.
and there was a lot that I normally see that weren't there.
Yeah.
So it was either way, it was a fun experience, and
it was cool because mentioning those influencers, I saw a lot of black influencers that I had no idea, but it was smart to invite. Of course, you're talking about like RDC World, who are huge. There's this guy named I think his name is Joshua, who's a huge TikToker. Same thing. No,
it wasn't Makuga.
No, but a lot, and I appreciate that too. I think the biggest thing you could have done is obviously want to invite everybody, but you really want to try and focus on the black community, knowing what this movie is to us and everything. So I thought it was really well done.
Yeah. So once again, when it's time, we'll get into some of those reactions, because Coy has respectfully asked that he doesn't want to get spoiled by.
I deleted my Twitter and Instagram, guys. That's like legit the biggest thing I've ever done for a movie.
Not deleted it.
Well, they're off my phone.
Right.
Like the accounts are still active.
Right.
Wait, like. Go back to my shot real quick, because I kicked this box that's touching the camera, and the camera wiggled, so I'm just making sure we're good. Wiggle.
Yeah.
Folds.
Anyway, so what I will say is that I'm very excited for everything that we had a chance to see it. I did my out of the theater reaction last night, which is doing really well on the channel right now. It's almost at, I think by the time this airs, I think that it was, when we were shooting it, it was at 80,000. So I'm hoping that it continues to go on. I hope more people check it out and enjoy it. I did not spoil anything. Even people, it's like I say to people inside of the thing, I go, it's an out of the theater reaction. It's not a review. I can't review it. And you always get the same comments from people. Well, this is pretty much a review. No, it's not a review. Because if you look at my reviews, that it was like a minute and 30 seconds. It's not a review.
It's not a review.
Something, and that's the first. And then you look at someone's Twitter reaction. Same thing. That's part one. And then the other thing is, I can't talk about this movie. I can't do anything. Can you just tell me if so-and-so is doing it? I can't tell you anything. I can't tell you anything. But what I can tell you is that you should check out the reaction if you want to know a little bit more. All right, boys. We got a lot to talk about. So let's start with the first one. Oh, good. I didn't put any of the news stories in there. I'm so
good.
happy.
It's okay. It's okay.
Pulled them all.
I got you. I'll tee you up, baby.
But no, don't do it yet, because I actually pull the image.
Well, no, that's fine. I'm just buying you some time.
That's
it. Yeah. Oh, you put my. Hey, what's up? First of all, what's up, Mom? I know you don't watch this show, but here I am. That's what I do every morning. On Thursday morning, I would come here and hang out with these two white boys, and we talk about comic books. It's pretty great. I am very excited, as Kristian mentioned, about this Boom segment, because I have been trying to piece together specifically, and he mentioned at the top, why did I truly know Boom before we started doing this? And it's because of Power Rangers, bro. So I don't know what's wrong with me, but there we go.
Yeah, I got it. So I want to talk about James Gunn.
Good van.
Yeah, good, absolutely. Because it was funny, because I was coming back the other day and I saw, because Guardians trailer drops, and
the holiday special.
Yeah, the holiday special drops, and I remember saying to myself, okay, that looks fun, because I'll tell you, the thing that I also want to talk to you guys about that in general, before we get into this, is that I thought it was animated.
Really?
I did not know it was a live action series.
They shot it the Chinese. I guess I knew because I physically saw the Guardians on the street, and I was like, that's crazy.
I am unfairly mad at you right now.
Oh.
And it has nothing to do with, you didn't do anything. You didn't do anything, as I've never told you. Those orange sodas are off limits.
Yeah, you didn't tell me.
I didn't tell you. Do you know why? Do you know why they're off limits?
Why?
Because you can't buy them anywhere, and my stupid ass bought them, like a can, 8 of them for $30, because you can't get them anywhere.
8 of them for $30.
Whoa, you love those orange sodas.
I do.
That's beer price.
You can't buy it anywhere.
You have to. They're very limited. You can't buy them. And I had to
buy
get
some
them off.
right now.
Supply and demand.
I'm totally kidding with you, but not really.
You spent $30 on an 8-pack of bubbly water.
I did.
I've never thought of you as someone like that's the bougiest thing I think I've ever considered.
100%.
Like, that's so like,
absolutely.
Bring me my bubbly.
When it comes to bubbly,
that's it. That's
I
your
will
line.
have 25 here for $15 in 2 days.
Prove it.
Okay.
Show me what the delivery is going to be.
It'll be here the 7th.
And what's the actual delivery? How much does it cost?
Wait, they're adding a delivery fee? What the fuck is that?
That's where they
nonsense?
get you.
I told you.
But that's
nice,
disrespectful.
Nice tone.
That's so disrespectful.
Why don't you curse again?
Look, don't fucking tempt me.
Stop this. It's just minutes.
Woo.
Anyway.
$30 bubbly. The Top Gun guy?
No, not the Top Gun guy.
Wow, that's wild.
I told you. So am I lying to you?
No, not anymore. Because it wasn't. It's
15 and to get someone's ass to come over here and bring it. So anyway,
come out of Instacart retirement.
Man loves his orange bubbly.
Look, and you don't even tell me what I would have paid for the apple. All right, so anyway, so this the special when it comes out, I'm like, oh, this live action. So I watched it, and I was gonna react to it, but I was like, I don't know, I'm not sure. So I go and I check it out, and I'm like, it starts off, and I immediately start getting like PTSD on Thor, Love and Thunder, right? Because I'm so bombarded and beaten down and sick of all the comedy that doesn't match, right? But I literally had a conversation with myself in my head that said, stop. It's a freaking holiday special, you idiot. And it's like, and who cares if it plays into the lore, but it's just supposed to be a fun thing on Disney that just plays with Marvel, and it's a comedy special for holidays. It's not the same thing when it ties into the overall arc right. When you go into the theater. So I watched it first time going, I don't know, same kind of comedy crap. And then I watched it again going with that mindset going, this looks like a lot of fun.
I think it will be. I think the only major lore that it's bringing in, I mean, it'll be interesting to see if Kevin Bacon does anything beyond the comedy special, but is Cosmo. Because we have seen him in previous entries, but just kind of around.
Yeah.
Now Cosmo will be like a main player, and that other than that, it really is just, it seems like it's just gonna be fun.
Yeah, it's like a one-off fun.
I love the idea of the Guardians on Earth. Like, we haven't seen that yet.
Right.
So that's really exciting to me, is to see how they like interact with that whole world. What a great way to do it, right?
Yeah. Has he been back at all since? No, right?
So this is like a good introduction. Maybe we get new music and stuff.
Thanos,
he's been back,
Thanos,
right.
but yes, not on Earth.
Wasn't he on?
No, remember, that's how the Avengers compound, they all show up on Earth to fight Thanos at the end of Endgame, but they have not gone through Earth.
Oh, right. Yeah, his experienced Earth.
Right.
Yeah, a portal to Earth and then Boogie.
Yes.
Okay, got it.
So anyway, so that happens. That whole thing goes down. Now I'm watching the holiday special. I was like, okay, that's fun. That's a big thing that everybody's gonna be talking about today. It was forgotten in 45 minutes because of the same guy who directed that special was announced as the new head of DC, and he's going to be running all of DC with Peter Safran, and that is, of course, one James Gunn. Now, again, there was this report that I read on the big thing, but I'll read it again if you just tune in for Capes and Cowls. Okay, I'm very proud of you. DC has found its Kevin Feige, or rather Feige's. Filmmaker James Gunn and producer Peter Safran have been set to lead DC's TV and animation efforts as co-chairs and co-CEOs of DC Studios. DC Studios is a newly formed division at Warner Brothers that will replace DC Films and mark the end of a months-long search by Warner Brothers Discovery CEO David Zaslav. I will call him Zaslav for this time. I told you, when he does
good decisions.
When he makes good decisions, I get his name right. To replace existing DC film boss Walter Hamada. Gunn's going to handle the creative side, while Safran will focus on the business and production side. Both are expected to continue to direct and produce projects, respectively. Both will report to Zaslav and work closely with Warner film bosses Michael DeLuca and Pamela Abdy. The initial overture to the pair reportedly came from DeLuca over the summer. One exception is going to be Todd Phillips' Joker, Fola Adu, which will not fall under their purview and will be overseen by DeLuca and Abdy. It's not clear at present how much involvement they're going to have in the Matt Reeves Batman. Everything else, DC, though, will come under them. Zaslav says in a statement, their decades of experience in filmmaking, close ties to the creative community, and proven track record thrilling superhero fans across the globe make them uniquely qualified to develop a long-term strategy across film, TV, and animation and take this iconic franchise to the next level of creative storytelling. Gunn and Safran are going to be working with top execs at Warner Brothers, including WB-TV's Channing Dungey and HBO's Casey Bloys, among others. DC Studios will share resources across the company. The hiring goes into effect on November 1st, with the deal to last 4 years. Gunn's new project will be exclusive to DC during that time. All right, so let's talk about this, because...
How many years?
4.
4.
Okay.
4 years they have. That is not a lot of time.
Hopefully it gets renewed, because this is the best thing they could have done.
Yeah. Well, yes, but we have to see it.
Sure.
Gunn has a proven track record as a filmmaker and as a comic book filmmaker, so I don't have any problem with that. But it is a change of role. You know what I'm saying? He's not directing a film now. It's a massive change in role. It doesn't mean that he can't do it. He very much can. Like my cousin was a longtime agent with WME, and now she's flipped over to a studio exec, and she's thriving. So there's no reason, same thing, that Gunn can't make that transition.
Same
but we
game,
gotta see it.
And it's the same game as a different position in the game. It's just a matter: do you vibe well with that position? And I also think that this is why Safran, who was being courted for it, was like, no. And this is, again, there's a bunch of different reports. One of the reports says, no, I don't really want to do this by myself. I think that James and I would work better. And I kind of think that the other report, which is that they've been courted at the same time together, which is more accurate, but they know each other, right? And it's not one of these things, the misconception that a lot of people are saying is that it's just Safran's the business guy and Safran just knows the numbers.
No, he's a super hands-on creative producer.
Absolutely, he is. He's a super creative producer in that. So don't just be fooled by the name of producer. He knows he's going to be able to tie in there, but the creative and the creative vision, the creative, like chipping away will be Gunn.
I mean, to that point, you could still say that about Marvel too. If you look at the model, obviously Feige is like the face; he's the Steve Jobs. But what is it? Esposito and
Victoria Alonso does tons too.
Like both of them. The other two executive producers you see immediately after Feige every single time.
Yes, well, they're gonna have producers below them for sure. But Feige, and I talked about this on Big Thing yesterday, Coy, said Feige is a rare animal here because he has that skill of being able to do everything that Safran is doing and to do everything that Gunn is doing. And absolutely, he's got people underneath him that help him. Otherwise, he can't do all this stuff on his own. But the main focus is Feige. Now, I think Kathleen Kennedy tries to do that and can't. And Kathleen Kennedy needs, she should be the Safran and have someone and need a Gun.
Yeah.
Right?
Do you
a
have
Filoni
Favreau?
or a Favreau?
Favreau, Filoni, somebody else, whatever it might be. Paycheck, Chapek, Sapsep. He needs to say, hey, listen, we're going to do the same thing that they did over at Warner Brothers now, Kathleen. You're going to have someone co-run Lucasfilm.
I mean, this could be huge if it works because that'll be a precedent that's set. Because, I mean, Kevin Feige's a one-of-one entity, and a lot of things had to line up for Disney to go this way. But he's also a showman. So he's a great producer, he's a great showman, and he's a comic book zealot. So I think in having two mega producers, that solves the producing side. Then you've got two people that love and know comics, that solves that. Then you've got Gunn on stage. I can see Gunn bringing up people at Hall H.
100%.
Like, it's already established that this is the perfect pair to be the Feiges. But I also think this gives DC a really good opportunity to thrive where Marvel isn't, in that there is someone to bounce ideas off of. There is opportunity to have a kind of brain trust, and it's also these are the guys that made the R-rated stuff.
Right.
Peacemaker and the Suicide Squad are because of these two. This gives Warner Brothers a chance to do what Marvel has never really committed to.
And canon to the Disney banner.
Be adults. Right. Like, let's have some adult content. Let's make the Suicide Squad.
Well, to be fair, I mean, there's still stuff adult wise. Even you look, again, not going into detail. Black Panther 2 is a very adult oriented film, but you can't play past a PG-13 with Disney. You just can't on the Marvel side.
Yeah.
On other things.
I mean, Deadpool might change that, but for now, this is the biggest hope for me to see things stay. Like the Matt Reeves Batman, I'm so glad it seems to be staying separate. And that's really arguably an adult film. Like, not an adult film, but you know what I'm saying? So, like, that is what I really want them to play both sides of. I think you should have a very happy, cheery, glowing Superman, but you also need to keep your Batman dark and gritty. Right. And I trust Gunn and Safran to do that versus trying to make one universe that's going to be this mess, which is what we've experienced largely for the last 10 years.
And I think that's the other thing too that they'll do a good job with. You will get there where you have everything built up. My beef has always been with the DCEU. You did it too fast.
Yeah.
There's no problem with bringing it together. Right. It's that you just automatically went from, we're going to do Marvel. We're going to do Marvel. Man of Steel, screw that. We're going straight into Batman v Superman. And it was like,
straight into Justice League right after that. Right. There's five people in that movie.
And I'm glad you brought that point up because it's one of the reasons you do bring in a James Gunn because, yes, he has been on the directing side and producing side, but he's also, he's a student.
Yeah.
And he's been paying attention to what Kevin Feige's been doing.
100%.
And he's been paying attention with how it all's been running since he's been involved in 2013, 2014 is when it came out. So he's been involved, and even before that, maybe when they started recruiting him to be part of it. So he's been paying attention, he understands, he knows how it works overall, right? So I think that that's going to be crucial to see kind of where it goes. And I think that people are wondering what James Gunn's going to do because James Gunn does have that more adult style, and he is a bit wacky and things too. But also remember that he's produced a lot of things that does not have that particular feel.
And he was on the brain trust for Infinity War and Endgame. Yeah, and like he's also the reason we went cosmic with Marvel. Like he was that big left turn with Guardians. Right. Guardians reshaped everything.
Now I will say, there's there's sometimes that I want to see certain movies that I want to make sure that it differentiates, and I want to feel sometimes when I think that the Suicide Squad and Peacemaker are some of my favorite DC stuff that has come out in a very long time. But I do want to see something from James Gunn that I can't tell that James Gunn directed it. You know what I mean? Like, that's what I want to see. I want to see a movie where I'm going, oh wow, James Gunn directed that. That's right. Sure. Like, because it's a comic book movie. I know it's going to be faithful to the characters. I know it's going to have emotion to it, but I want to go like the Suicide Squad. You could tell was directed by James Gunn. Peacemaker, you can tell was directed.
Can you give me an example?
It's his sense of humor. It's
not James Gunn. I'm sorry. Can you give me an example of a director that's happened for you? Where like you watched a movie and you didn't know.
What was the one that Tim Burton did one that, and normally you can always tell a Tim Burton movie, but he did this movie. What that was it? Big Eyes, I think it was. I think it was Big Eyes. Is the one that they did with Amy Adams and another one. And you certainly, if I told you that Burton did it, you'd be like, oh, okay, I can see that. But it's not the same. Like when you see Beetlejuice and Edward Scissorhands and all these other movies, you're like, well, that's a Tim Burton movie. Like and James Gunn is a very different style from those movies, but it's instead of like the
I know what you mean.
Pure visuals of Burton, it's
almost like a
substance of the tone of James Gunn. You feel that in there, and I just want to see that inside of DC because I think that's a bigger concern for some people. And I don't think he's going to do his.
I don't think he's going to be directing or that hands-on with everything. I think he's just going to be the thing steering the crazy ship. Yeah. I think he's going to be good at picking directors, very good at making the overall 10-year plan. And
people love him.
Like navigating.
People love him.
The only reason why I asked you is I'm not trying to counter you or anything. I just in my mind I can't think of a single director where I stepped back and was like. I almost always, if I'm familiar with the director, go, yeah, they clearly did that. Like every Wachowski film, clearly the Wachowskis had their hand in it. You can sense their creative design. Spielberg, like even Ryan with Ryan Coogler.
Look at the Wachowskis, though, right? So, Wachowskis.
Was I saying it wrong? It's Wachowskis.
Mike Wachowski. Wachowski. But,
Matrix Inc.
But you look at the Matrix, but then you look at like Cloud Atlas is significantly different than those movies, and like Bound is significantly different.
Bound's a great.
I haven't seen Bound, but because in my mind the minute I thought about the Matrix, I jumped over to like Speed Racer, and that genuinely feels like
there are definitely tones, but either way, I
hear you saying.
I think that. Yeah, go ahead.
I was just going to say, and speaking of world building, I think the best person to do this is someone that has known the comics and has known the producing side. Yeah. So James Gunn there. But I also think it's just fascinating that we're dealing with comic book mediums, and there is no more comic book origin than having your arch nemesis spawned from you. I love that Superman created his own Lex Luthor and Kevin Feige created his own James Gunn. Sure. Like you fired the dude 5 years ago and now he's like, what if I take your job at the competition? I'm sure they're diplomatic. I just really enjoy on the comic side of things, like he literally built his own competition from scratch.
It's
genius.
That's also when it comes to you, whether it's a Vince McMahon or any of these people, like from the day building up your competition or your talent that eventually comes to become your competition. The way I looked at it was like it's like a baseball or football team that like for me it was the Yankees, and when the Yankees got Johnny Damon, which I brought up to you. So Johnny Damon for years was hated by the Yankees. Clemens, hated by the Yankees. Played for the Yankees, came over to play for the Yankees. Like those types of things, and to have him come over and do that. And I'm glad you also brought up the fact that he got fired, right? Because that was in the height of where it still happens all the time, where it's like, oh, well, we could get in trouble for having somebody here. We don't really know all the research, so you're fired. And that's what happened, to him. And then it was Dave Bautista and everybody else who rallied around him. He had already gotten his job at the Suicide Squad. And then they're like, we're not going to do the next Guardians if you don't bring him back. Yeah. And then they brought him back. And that very rarely happens. And
we thought he was winning then because we were like, oh, look, he's making a movie at both. Now he's running one of them.
Yeah, because he said, I'm not doing this and he said it at Comic-Con, right? This is his last one that he was doing anyway. They knew it. I want to know because Feige, and we can get into this now too.
That was my tangent for us. I'm going to talk about the Kevin Feige clips. I haven't heard it.
Well, so what he said, it was very brief, but they asked him and they said on the red carpet for Black Panther, everybody was asking him about it, obviously, and he knew that he was going to get those questions, but he said, well, he's doing something for us right now, which is the Guardian special, and he's going to be working with us and then Guardians. So he's going to be working with us until like May. So he's got a lot of work with us still, But then after that, I can't wait. I'll be the first one online to see what.
And that's what I love is there is no Marvel DC rivalry. And when I say like made a nemesis, I'm just saying that it's going to be better for Marvel if DC's doing well. It's only going to like competition is only healthy. So I love that like Kevin Feige made someone worthy of being someone that he's making movies opposite. And I think that him coming out of the Marvel pool is only going to benefit DC.
Agree, but I think Marvel needs it also because I think Marvel's getting a little lackadaisical.
That's a conversation of competition. Like I think they need someone putting them on their toes a little bit, and I think this is the only way that's going to happen.
Yeah, absolutely. I know we're not talking BP yet, but I think that this was the injection shot they needed, and hopefully they can use that as a springboard with knowing that DC is now going to be nipping at their heels legitimately.
Ant-Man looks great
to keep things moving. It does to just keep things moving, and I think that that's kind of what has to happen 1,000%. Because I even think, even though I didn't love Black Adam, I enjoyed it. You know what I'm saying? And I think, again, you are setting a tone of trying to right the ship.
And that's, I don't know if you saw that quote from The Rock saying this was kind of like the phase 1 kickoff was Black Adam. So I think it's really interesting. The same week this all happens, we get, because it seems pretty obvious that The Rock knew because the hierarchy of power did change. And then he's saying this is the kickoff of phase 1 and all those things. I think that it's a good thing that James Gunn and Kevin Feige have mutual respect for each other. Yeah. And I think that's only going to make both studios stronger.
But the other thing too is like y'all said, these are the types of jobs that you were mentioning a friend that was up for some sort of big job, Kristian, that it was like an 18-month, 2-year process. So I guarantee Gunn has been in these talks for a minute in the middle of shooting Guardians 3 in the holiday special.
Right.
But it's just a matter of like, okay, we know it's coming down the pipeline, so just focus, and then we'll come back around to this, And
I think it's going to be a really interesting press tour. for Guardians 3 is going to be fascinating because dude's going to be running DC while promoting it.
It's bizarre.
It's going to be a DC Marvel fest.
But that would be my guess is that maybe he doesn't start work until the press tour is over.
He said November 1st?
November 1st.
Like he starts working a week, dude.
Yeah, he starts November 1st.
Well, good thing you have the good thing you literally have a Wonder Twin who can take over while you're doing press and then come back.
He literally starts in a week, and then he's got to do the entire press tour through May. Wow. So he's in post-production on a Marvel movie. He's got to do press on a Marvel movie in 5 months while he's starting to run DC.
Well, so let me ask you that then, because as we started the conversation up top, 4-year deal, as we said, not a lot of time because of this reason why, right? Now, I'm on different philosophies for different companies when it comes to the make announcement deal, right? Lucasfilm, there's been a big report recently that Chapek was like, hey, Kathleen Kennedy, stop announcing movies for Star Wars until we actually have them because this keeps happening and the fans, and so stop this. I get that. I think that there's enough evidence to say it's like the odds are probably not going to happen when you announce it because at 90% of the movies we've announced, they don't happen. So I understand that conversation. Marvel, I understand that they do a lot of announcements because most of the time their movies do happen, right? There's what was the one that the one that they announced in the slate years ago that didn't happen? It was but it wound up being part of the TV show instead.
Oh yeah, that is rare. But there was one. You're right. I think it was like phase 2 or 3.
Whatever it might have been. But there's some movie that never made it to light of day. Not the Immortals. What the hell was it called? It was
the Inhumans. And then it was that awful Fox show. Yes, there was the Inhumans movie.
It was the Inhumans. So they announced the Inhumans. That never happened. Very rare. You couldn't even think about it.
I couldn't. It slipped my mind because that was only 5 years ago.
Because they have enough of a plan to say we know what we need to do. Blade is an example of a movie that is put in. They want to make Blade. They have to, but they're having problems and they have to push it back and they have to do some stuff with it. But it's part of the thing. It's going to happen. It's just a matter of when, and they have to shift. Right. So I get it. So DC, and first of all, the name of it now, they made an official announcement. Also, it's no longer DCEU. It's now the DCU.
Yep, and it's DC Studios instead of DC Films.
Correct. So DC Studios and DCU now led by Safran and Gunn. So November 1st. That gives you, I think, 6 months to a year to put together a few projects because you're going to get Peacemaker 2, which is going to come out. We know that. We have Shazam that Safran's a part of already. Yep. You got Aquaman. That
Safran's a part of as well.
So those movies are going to start to play with that. Then they're going to start, I think that within 6 months, you're going to start getting announcements. Mm-hmm. But it's Comic-Con of next year.
Huge.
That's what I'm thinking. I don't even necessarily think you give any announcements. I mean, you maybe tease, but you hit Comic-Con and that's when you do.
Yeah, that's a major announcement.
I think you do a little bit of Batman teases. You let the Matt Reeves Batman ride out. Yeah, because we announced we had the announcement last week at the Batman 2. Right. We have the Penguin show. I think you through spring into early summer, slow trickle of news, and then your DC announcement at Hall H is going to be bananas.
You literally only announce things that are already things. So if Harley Quinn got renewed, so you bring that out.
Make it bigger.
Joker 2, Batman 2, those are the things you talk about. And like you said, Comic-Con is when you now say this is what we're got planned. I think,
and that's perfect timing
because you also need James to finish what he's already doing.
Right,
and he'll be wrapped on the press tour in May, and then he'll be able to kick off.
And they had what was interesting because they had that deal with, because they say inside of the report when it initially came out that he's exclusive to DC now. I mean, he's obviously they're going to let him wrap up his previous commitments, but then he's exclusive. So he really, even with that, with the amount of time he's going to have to do on the press for Guardians, and he's got 3.5 years basically.
Yeah,
is what he's got. Safran's got 4. He's got about 3.5.
And it's interesting because I feel like not enough people
fully commit.
Not enough people are talking about Safran because I feel like when you look at his track run, he made an Aquaman movie $1 billion. Oh hey, look at me, excited about Safran. Well, this is me talking a voiceover about me excited for There we go. So I think that people aren't giving him enough credit because Shazam was a sleeper hit. That was a very low budget, made a good amount of money, got a sequel, $1 billion Aquaman, all those things. And he's very good at turning small budgets into big successes with his horror movie resume. So the guy's not only known for being a very hands-on creative producer, not only known for turning these superhero movies into bigger hits, but he's a guy that works with a team well. So I think the duo of him and Gunn is going to be fantastic because I actually ran into him like on the street not long ago, and he was so curious what I thought of Peacemaker, what I thought of Suicide Squad, and he wanted the hands-on, like, what does the fan think? What is this experience? How did this roll out? Blah, blah, blah. And that's something that I've only ever seen with Kevin Feige. Every time I've talked to Kevin Feige, it's always like, what are the people saying? What's the street like?
That's what The Rock was. That's what The Rock was pushing really hard inside of those interviews too. It's like, what is everyone saying?
He asked me the question.
I know, and I hate doing this because I feel like I do this every single time, but it's just what I know. I feel that that's what Lucasfilm doesn't do. Right, and that's one of the big problems. Like, eventually, we're going to have this conversation, whether it's a year or 10 years from now, that the Lucasfilm's going to make a move like this because DC needed a move like this.
Sure, they
needed a move like this, and it's not like we didn't know that they were looking, and we knew it because Dan Lin was up for it, and then apparently from the report is that Dan Lin wanted too much, and it was too hard to get him out of his Universal job, so they couldn't get him out of that. So then that's when they started to look around and going, okay, well, what about because I think it was Safran who had and Gunn who recommended Dan Lin.
Interesting.
And then it was like, okay, well, he can't do it, so they start looking at Safran, and then obviously we get to this, and then because James Gunn at that point has to have that conversation with his wife. He's got
that's a life commitment, man. That's huge. Even if it's 4 years, that's a life commitment.
It is a major shift in your life. In general, think about how busy he is as a director and a producer. Right. It is a major shift because now you're now you're responsible. Again, using those sports terms, it's a team that has a lot of championship players on it, but they can't win the title. Yeah, they're right there on the precipice of doing it almost all of the time, and they get a couple big wins and big games, but they can't win the title. And now here's a guy who played for the team that wins the title every other Thursday.
Yeah,
and they're like, okay, you know what? Take him off there. They got a chance to win the title.
So you're telling me that the Cowboys need to steal Bill Belichick and then we can finally get over the hump?
But that's
it's your best chance. It's your best chance.
That's the philosophy. Yeah, that's the philosophy.
And I mean, he might moneyball it. He might get some weird C-list Guardians of the Galaxy characters in DC. There's Plastic Man. There's like Zatanna. There's all these characters that should exist.
And it's that HBO Max thing that they could do with shows and other things to do where they're gonna steal that Marvel model as they should.
Justice League Dark, make a horror. Because, I mean, Safran and Gunn, if they make a Justice League Dark, that's right in their alley.
I agree. Well, these are the two questions that I'm curious kind of bouncing off of this, to be honest with you. One, so what do you think that this truly means for the Guardians? We know that obviously Batista's out after this.
Well, and so there was another. I'm glad you brought that up because there is another report about that very thing that we'll get into in just a minute. But before we do it, I wanted to tell you, look, we're talking a lot about comic books. We're talking a lot about comic book movies. Fantasy shows were big. So we'll talk about some fantasy shows, and as I mentioned before, I finished the Rings of Power. I know that Coy is getting into it now, and he's digging it.
Loving it.
Yeah, man. So our friends over at WONDERY, they do this show. They do the official show. And if you want to go deeper into the canals of Numenor, the mines of Khazad-dûm, and more, with the official The Lord of the Rings of Power podcast. Felicia Day. Everybody loves Felicia Day. She is the host of the show, and she's got several special guests, and they provide an inside look at the groundbreaking series and what it took to bring Middle-earth to life. Each episode of the official podcast brings exclusive interviews with the series showrunners J.D. Payne and Patrick McKay, including the very first full breakdown of the incredible season finale. Felicia also goes behind the scenes with the cast and the crew to bring you jaw-dropping stories and Easter eggs that you don't want to miss. So go check out The Rings of Power on Prime Video, and you can listen to all 8 episodes of the official The Lord of the Rings of Power podcast for free on Amazon Music. So download that Amazon Music app now. So catch up on the show, catch up on with the podcast. Okay, so Winston had mentioned this before we started talking about that, and we were talking about the Guardians here and who's coming back, who's not coming back. Well, Gamora ain't coming back. That's the news. Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 star. This is from Comic Book Movie. Zoe Saldana suggests that the threequel will be her last time playing Gamora. Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 star Zoe Saldana has commented on returning as Gamora in the upcoming threequel, but it doesn't sound like she intends to stick around as the variant beyond this movie. A lot of heroes died in Avengers Infinity War, but before Thanos snapped his fingers, the movie dealt his biggest blow when the Mad Titan killed Gamora. Throwing his daughter to her death, the villain was able to acquire the Soul Stone in one of the MCU's most heartbreaking moments. In Avengers Endgame, the time travel meant that Gamora was able to return in the present day, albeit without any memory of her fellow Guardians of the Galaxy. The 2014 era variant escaped in the blockbuster's closing moments and will show up in Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 as the new leader of the Ravagers. However,
what?
Is that a new?
It seems like a spoiler, but okay.
They kind of teased that in the trailer.
Yeah, okay.
Well, it was in the San Diego trailer.
Oh,
I'm a monster. I'm just saying it like it's known.
This is what it said in the
article.
Black
Panther had no.
However, rather than serving as a fresh start for Gamora in the MCU, it sounds like this might be the last time that we're going to see of her. She says, filming started bitter in the beginning because obviously you're anticipating the end, but I'm so happy that once again I got to work with great people. Zoe Saldana tells Entertainment Weekly, I had an evolution that I witnessed of myself, but also my director and my cast. I just felt very blessed and grateful. It was a very sweet departure, I have to say. That sounds pretty definitive, though we probably shouldn't be surprised. James Gunn has said on multiple occasions that the threequel ends this iteration of the team's story, and we aren't going into the movie expecting some big character deaths. We are. That's what they said. Okay, we are. So while we're sure the Guardians team will live on in some form, it won't be with Gunn. His 4-year deal with Warner Brothers as the head of DC Studios means any sort of MCU return is off the table until the end of 2026 at the earliest. Something tells us Marvel Studios won't want to sideline the team for that long. Okay. So that doesn't surprise me, and I think we'll probably hear more of this because I think that Dave Bautista is pretty much going to guaranteed to wind up in the DC. He's Gunn for life.
He'd be a good Lobo.
Oh, yeah.
It'd be fun.
He would be a phenomenal Lobo, but my only thing is, though, remember he himself was even saying about Drax, he doesn't want to be the superhero Jacked anymore.
Yeah.
Like he's going to stay in shape. He's Batista, but he's like, I'm
big
done doing it. Like I did it all of wrestling and I did it all of the run of this character. I don't want to do it anymore.
Yeah, I don't know if they'd have to have him jacked, right? Like depending on how they set up the character, depending on how they like suit him. And like he's got like a vest and he's shirtless, so it's tricky.
Yeah, but like Lobo and a lot of times because he will get set on fire, like Lobo's jacked.
That's true. He needs to be jacked. What I'm saying? I was just excited.
He whoops Superman's ass on the regular, like and like the back and forth. Yeah,
that's fair.
I think you're right. I think it's very possible that's exactly who he plays. They've been trying to get that going for years, and Rock was rumored for it now. So yeah, I think that this is going to keep happening, and I think that there's also the question that I was thinking of because of the relationship that Gunn does have with Feige. Feige knew this was coming. Guarantee knew it wasn't. It wasn't like a surprise. Like Gunn probably told him that hey, they're courting me for this thing.
He might have asked him advice.
100%.
You know what I mean? Like, hey, exactly.
Why wouldn't you wouldn't you, if you were like that tight with Feige and you had this opportunity, wouldn't he be like your first phone call?
They want me to be the you. Right. Should I be the you?
I'm sure that conversation actually happened.
Guaranteed.
I would love to talk to either one of them to see if that conversation happened because I'm sure some iteration of it did.
You obviously talk to him infinitely more than I haven't spoken a word to him, but my buddy was assistant editor on BP, and he was telling me just how Feige is the most I want to lift everybody up person you can meet. And so I would not be surprised at all if James brought it to him.
When he was on the press line and they asked him that question, I mean, there's a few different variant answers but they're all pretty much the same, where he's just like, he's got to do work for us, but then I'm going to be the first person online to watch him and cheer him on. And
I believe that.
I do too,
that's not
that's not my point. I totally believe it.
Everything I've encountered with that guy has been only hyper positive and hyper like trying to move everything forward and, like you said, lift everybody up, which is so impressive.
That's why he's successful.
Right.
Because
help each other.
I have worked for people that are me, and like just. I worked for a company that they didn't even give their employees like tickets to the premiere. Like you have to and you'd have to like go and.
Did you say egos collided at this place? Would you say this was some sort of?
It was Joe Silver's company.
Silver I was talking about recently.
He was the worst with that stuff. It's like everybody worked their asses off for that guy, and it was like and it was at one like people like, oh, we're not sure if we're gonna go. Oh, they got you tickets, but the employees are not going to go to the party. It's like, what are you talking about? It's like these are people like. Getting paid like $600 a week. Dude, like, what are you talking about?
That was the other cool thing about the premiere. I don't know if you noticed, Kristian, is it was all crew. It was like, obviously the cast was, but there were so many people that were there that worked on the film.
Every one of those ones that I've been to on Marvel and Lucasfilm too. To be as much as I like punch them in the balls sometimes, like they
care about their team.
They do. Absolutely, they do. And so does DC, and so does Warner Brothers. Absolutely. Yeah. So
I'm going back to the Safran thing because I was so impressed. But the fact that both Kevin Feige and Peter Safran, when you see them ask your opinion, means these are now in good hands.
Right.
And James Gunn's always been that way. But I'm saying like for these mega producers, like if you're not in the entertainment industry, producers usually don't care. Like they don't show emphasis on the individual watching it. They just show it on the business. These are producers that care, and I do think that's why they're succeeding. And I'm really excited. I've not been this excited for DC in years.
Absolutely, and I think that it's because of the way that they're setting themselves up. I actually think that they're in a position right now to make better quality stuff that I like than Marvel at the moment. Because just giving my not anything spoilery, just saying that I think that to me what I liked about Black Panther 2 was that it was back to the form of the Marvel stuff that I liked.
Sure. That's why I'm off. Yeah. I didn't delete my Twitter or Instagram for any other movie, like because Black Panther looks like what I want.
That's what I mean.
It to
so
be.
That's what I'm saying. Like, are there jokes? Of course there are jokes.
Sure. There's jokes in the first one.
But the jokes that you and I consistently talk about in the show, does it make sense that those characters would do it? And the answer is yes.
And you and I both laughed. And only we laughed during Eternals many times because those are the jokes that worked for the characters.
Right.
And that's what I need.
Oh, I need you to see it because there's one joke in particular that I couldn't tell if Kristian like got it or found it as funny as I like every black person in that theater lost their shit.
Dude, I'm so excited. I got a week and a half. I'm so excited.
Okay, so we have a lot more to talk about. And before we do, I do want to get into our new section, man. It's our new segment, and it is Boom. It's about the comic books. It could be about Boom Studios, and we'll cover a lot about Boom Studios, who are our partners on this segment. But there are other comics that Coy certainly, I'm sure, is reading. Winston's reading something, but these are all things that are going to turn into movies or TV shows down the line. I'm sure of it, especially in the landscape that we are today. But let's go right off the bat here. And the first thing I want to talk about, as far as when it comes to Boom Studios, is I have never heard as much about Magic the Gathering than being friends with both Ellis and Ben Baden. And so I had no idea that Boom was doing this. This is pretty awesome because it's the 30th anniversary of the iconic card game Magic the Gathering. And people love this. I mean, swear by it. And how valuable a lot of these cards are. It's incredible. Like people, I mean, it's life for some people. So right now, fans are gathering all over Las Vegas, and they're there right now, and they're going to commemorate the milestone of the Magic 30-year convention. That's pretty awesome, especially when you can hit something for 30 years. I mean, we did Schmoedown for 9 years, and I thought that was something. No, I'm telling you, like 9 years is a long time. 30 years is fantastic. Yeah. And Boom Studios, they're proud to announce that they're going to be actually joining the festivities with huge savings on their entire line of Magic comic books. They have the whole thing, and I have this right here, and I think they even have. Do we have you got that little code there. If you're a Magic the Gathering fan, you can check the code out right there. And if people weren't aware, Boom Studios has actually been publishing the official Magic the Gathering comics for a few years now, featuring all the fan favorite planeswalkers, locations, and villains from the card game. So if you're a big Magic fan, you haven't been following the series, now is the perfect time to catch up. They have the hardcover collections, and they're available for 30% off right now on Amazon.com.
Wow.
It'll catch you up for the release of Volume 3, and that comes out in December. If you prefer to read your comics digitally, you're in luck, because all of Boom's Magic issues are on sale for 50% off through the end of the weekend. Are you kidding me?
Damn.
Go. So you can go and do that. Make sure you can find all the links. You can go to boom-studios.com/magic/sale. I will have the link in the description, or just search Magic on Amazon.com.
I think you can also just, like you said, that QR code.
The QR code might do that too.
Yeah, do the code right there. But are you guys Magic fans?
Oh yeah.
You are. Okay.
It's a big for me. It's one I'm not.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
It's what
it's
you are.
Too much scope.
Too much.
Too
much.
Like
okay,
it's.
right,
I do so much comics.
I
It's
see.
I am
it's
not,
a lot.
I am not Bateman with it because it sounds like he's gone the full
like
on
a professional player,
which is funny. I if I remember correctly, I think I played him one time and I beat him and he got so mad because it was an old ass deck that I had from like high school.
Yeah.
And I just randomly used it against him and he was like, "You son of a bitch."
Every so often there's a fandom that I'm just like, man, if I'd started 5 years earlier. Right. And I know it's not an intimidating to entry.
Yeah.
It's just the volume of what I'm consuming with comic books.
Well, my daughter's a Pokemon, right? And like she's playing these games, and it's like you might as well be reading German to me. But like, but the fan base for that series, and then the fan base for these cards, and the fact that Boom's doing the comic books, that I'd be very interested in.
That might be my gateway because I speak comic book.
Right, and to learn more about it in that way, and in the same way. So for me, like for like Arcane, like I can't get in League of Legends, and I can't get in. I won't be able to play those games, right? But man, was I interested in the lore after watching Arcane. Did you ever watch it?
Yeah, it was rad. Dude. It was so incredible.
Dude,
it took a while,
dude.
It's one of the better anime. It's so good, dude.
Treat yourself this weekend.
I will. No, I definitely will. Because the funny thing is like I was big in that I loved the game. I didn't get super crazy into the lore other than the Planeswalkers. What they're talking about is almost like the main character you play as with your deck. They kind of evolved the game to do that. They built that out. So I know a little bit about that stuff, but the full-on lore that they've done with the comics, I'm not as familiar with.
So
it
check
sounds
it out.
super interesting.
Yeah. Well,
Absolutely.
something I know that you are interested in.
Oh, boy.
What you've been talking about.
Here it is.
There we go, ladies and gentlemen. Go Power Rangers.
Woo-hoo.
Mighty Morphin Power Rangers. Now, I have never seen so many comments.
About one thing.
Right?
Yeah.
You
saw it too.
Because people were very excited that we've been doing this thing with Boom. But they're like, the reason why we love Boom so much is because of Power Rangers. They have the Power Rangers comic. It's so good. It's awesome. Raving about this comic. I mean, I saw so many comments.
And
about
people
this.
picking up Power Rangers. And then one of the things we talked about, which I liked.
Right.
Like when people were like, I've been on Power Rangers. I also picked up Berserker. And I was like, yes, one of us.
Yeah, people are loving the Power Ranger stuff from Boom. And if you are, you're in for it this week because it's a huge week for Power Rangers fans. Issue 101 is available right now. Now you got the after the epic culmination of the Charge to 100. This issue is going to usher in a brand new era for all of our favorite Rangers. Recharge and ready for a bold new direction.
Dude, it's so good.
Is it great?
Like that,
Okay.
like this, just even this first book, the setup of where they're going, it literally felt like to me, you're excited to come back into a Game of Thrones and they finish the first episode of the season. You're like, oh my God. Like that is, I don't want to get into it because I want people to read it, but you've got all 7 of the Rangers.
Yeah, people are loving this comic, man.
A terrifying new scope and getting more into lore. That's the thing that I really love about it is they really got into more lore of Zordon and kind of how he ended up as a floating head. So
that's intriguing.
Oh, that is pretty great. Yeah.
I will also say at Boom's booth this last Comic-Con, they had a bunch of the actors that play the Power Rangers, the new wave of Power Rangers. And when I was a little kid, I remember waiting like 3 hours in line to meet a Power Ranger, and then it wasn't one of the real ones. It was like someone in a giant oversized head. And I remember being like, as a kid, excited, then 2 years later looking at a photo and being like, I've been hoodwinked. But then at this Boom thing, it was really cool to see the excitement of kids meeting the real ones. So I had this really cool moment of like retroactive nostalgia, seeing those little memes get to meet. So Boom's for the people.
Well, you can check that out now. Make sure you do. And so as we move on to the next one, there's a lot of great stuff coming out right now. Here's another one. So we have some stuff that's coming out, upcoming releases. So this is pretty great. So one of the releases that we have right now is Behold Behemoth #1. Now this is the one that you checked out, right, Coy?
I checked out I've checked out this one and I checked out the other one we're talking about this week.
Okay, so Behold Behemoth is I mean, I did this little jam.
Ooh, look at that.
I got it in a second.
Yeah, the energy in this art made me so happy. So this is one of those comics that you like turn pages and you just go, and you just like experience it because it's got this scope, it's got this supernatural energy to it that I really dig. But I also love how human certain characters get to be immediately. You're immediately endeared to a lot of characters while you've got this crazy scope. So I was very impressed with this number one, and I was also Damn Them All, which we're going to talk about in a second. Yeah. Maybe the most impressive number one I've read.
I really love it.
Dude, it was so good, right?
Let's talk about that one first, then we'll come back to Bohemian's number one.
Simon Spurrier, one of my favorite writers, hard stop. I told you guys last week, Simon Spurrier, big fan. Yep. Simon Spurrier did a short run on Constantine that I was obsessed with, and then this book came out, and I was like, I'd rather have him do this because it gets to have his own universe built. Instead of being beholden to any continuity whatsoever, you're getting a Constantine-esque story with all of that incredible Guy Ritchie-tinged dialogue, the insanity of like this underworld coming at you, the rules they built here. I loved our lead character. It's so good.
Well, what's so good about the fact that if you guys have been watching Capes and Cowls, we talked about this not too long ago, the last episode or the week before. Well, the good news is that you can go get it now because it's out in stores right now. So if you missed our conversation about it, it is an action horror series, and it's drawn by the artist on The Walking Dead, Charlie Adlard, and writer Simon Spurrier. So, as we just said, we checked it out. It's going to be probably one of the biggest series of the fall, so you don't want to miss it.
The language feels good in your head. I kept rereading lines and just like marinating in the language.
Well, and I can hear the accents, which is crazy.
Well, that's why I told you guys last week when we talked about it was that Constantine type feel, right? And that idea that this is one that you, as I mentioned in the beginning of the segment, this is one of those ones that you're gonna see this.
It'll happen.
I guarantee you.
This is one of the ones that's going to transfer over, and they go, "Oh, we heard about Capes and Cowls first."
Absolutely, hell yeah! And I mean, I think the thing that really got me about Damn Them All is even putting a twist on what you normally see. I, again, don't want to spoil anything, but what we think of like demons and familiars, and how differently they're addressing it in this first book. I'm like, oh.
And the opening pages being in POV was fun. I really liked the style where they had the opening 2 pages, then there's a little tiny mini twist.
Yeah, it's creative, and it's always, you always wonder because even if there's like, I mean, the story is significantly different from other things that we saw, even though I mentioned like Constantine, there's the familiarity, but it's a very different story. But you always wonder, well, we've seen these types of things. How are they going to make it unique? And as you mentioned, when you open up, you're like, that is about as unique as it gets.
It's so, and then the other book they've got, like, I kept turning pages and just going like, this art, like I didn't know the artist. And I just got being like, I love the scope, the feel, like, look at this. It feel, and you, if you call a book Behold Behemoth, it better be big. Like, so I was really impressed that it felt, because you're looking at, a 2D rendering of something that could look tiny or it could be a behemoth. And I was just so impressed.
And for people for that one, so we had a chance to take an early look at it, and it's an upcoming release this week. This is one of the Boom titles, and fans are really losing their minds about it. So if you, and we talked about it, I think, last week and the week before, which was Killing the Children. You know, there's a spin-off series, and it's called House of Slaughter last year, and that was
new issue this week.
Comic that's coming out. So issue number 1 launched with almost 500,000 sales, and it's massive for a comic book release, even by Marvel and DC standards. So the co-writers of that series, Tate Brombell, is launching his first original series, and he's publishing it with guess who? Boom! And he's collaborating with the artist Nick Robles. The series is called Behold Behemoth, as Coy and we were just talking about. It's a supernatural mystery about a man who begins having vivid nightmares about a terrifying monster, dreams that start to bleed into the real world, which I love. I love when they do that kind of stuff. Who meets a young orphan girl who might just be the key to unlocking the mystery or the key to ending the world. I'll tell you, man.
You'll be shocked how quick you love these characters.
I'm telling you right now, and I'm gonna say this, even if Boom's like, oh, that was a fun little run that we had, and see you some other time. We never get to remember again. I would say this next week after they left. Boom's going to be a major. Already he's becoming a major player. Boom's going to be one of the players pretty soon because of stuff like this. Yeah. When you see everything that we just mentioned here, is that not a television show?
I would tell you, if Netflix is in much trouble as they're in, if they wanted to figure out what IP do we latch, do a deal with Boom, and because at that point, since Boom Studios, because have they started a full film studio? They're just getting Berserker ready for a film.
Yeah,
and show.
Okay.
They're doing a lot.
But they have like a film production studio.
It's a division.
It's a division. Yeah. But they're starting with Berserker, which is smart, and they're branching out into TV also with that title.
The smartest thing they could do is partner up with Netflix, which is already trying to figure out what to do with their studio, and let that the same way that you watched. I know Star Wars got bought out by Disney, But like, you know how I'm saying, that partnership kind of started.
I don't know I don't know what their deal is or who they might have a deal already with and I'm sure with all the kind of content that's out there right now and people needing content and IP,
and they think 5 years ahead. Boom knows what they're doing.
The funny thing is, I think that Netflix needs them more than Boom needs.
I totally agree.
That's my point. Yeah. With all these, every time we talk about one of their projects, this isn't just like we've all worked with companies where like, hey, we have these things, and you're like, yeah, it was fine. Consistently working with top tier artists, authors, and putting together fresh stories in a time when a lot of this comic book stuff that we have, unless you're trying to keep up with the Marvel or DC, is hard to do. So to make these new kind of fresher stories, and they don't just play in the horror place, they play in the sci-fi, they play in the fantasy, and that's why I think that they're becoming a major player. You're going to start to see, I'm telling you, within 5 years, you're going to start to see so many more movies and TV shows that are coming out going, Boom Studios presents, Boom Studios presents.
There's only 2 comic companies, and they put out a lot of number ones because they give a lot of new creators like a chance. And the only 2 that I will pick up no matter what are Boom and Image. If there's a number 1 from Boom, I'm reading it. Right. And if there's a number 1 from Image, I'm reading it. But I don't do that for Marvel or DC anymore.
Yeah, I mean, it's tough. There's so much. Yeah. Well, and it's a lot of repetitive stuff. But anyway, besides Boom, what'd you read?
I wanted to also plug Deadly Class number 57. It is the last issue of Deadly Class. Do you remember that show Deadly Class that was on for a season and got unceremoniously canceled? No. Benedict Wong was on it. That's why he came to Cloudy that one day. It was for Deadly Class.
Is that what it was for? I probably talked to him about it.
But it was this really great show.
Why he was there.
You're like, I don't know.
I'm taking a short memory pill.
Cut to you on the take of like, I love Deadly Class. But there was a show called Deadly Class I loved.
I've done that, by the way. I've watched things and totally forgot that I've watched it.
It was great. Yeah. So the comic just ended. This is the last issue. So issue 57, it's really hard to start a comic. It's maybe even harder to finish a comic, especially one that's run 6 years now, and it's got a beloved fan base, and I just wanted to give some love to issue 57 because it's one of my favorite indie comics of all time. It's one of my favorite comics I've ever read. It is a comic that is a political commentary, that is a commentary on drug culture. It's a commentary on how we treat people, the homeless, the disenfranchised, but it's also at its core a Hogwarts for assassins. It's a metal as fuck school that, sorry, I did a Winston. It's a school that basically trains mercenaries to take people out. And how do you stick that landing? How do you make it feel like you've grown up with these characters for 6 years? And how do you send them off into the sunset? And it is so bittersweet, and it is so powerful, and the writer poured his heart into it. The artist just gave his last, and I was so emotional finishing this book. It was like when I finished the Before Sunrise trilogy, where I'd been with them for so long. It was that in a comic book.
That's awesome.
So it's so special. I just highly recommend Deadly Class. Pick it up.
Well, there you go. So, and once again, for everybody who was checking out this segment, we're excited once again. Boom.
It's on.
It's on. And I'll tell you, man, I love that segment of the show because I think that from the feedback that I get from you guys. So please, even if you're not reading comics yet, let me know in the comments what stood out to you, what sounds interesting, what are you thinking in general about the segment. What do you like? What do you want to see us cover next week? If it's obviously we're going to have Boom stuff that we're going to be covering, but if you want us to check something else, something that you're reading that we haven't, can you stump Coy? Will you say something that Coy's like, I don't know what that is?
Total Request Live comic edition. Bring it.
Let's do it. So anyway, let's move on over, and we talked about the Gamora news for sure, and then there's this Arkham news as well. Now, where did this pop in from? I don't know if it's Dark Horizons or where it was, but they're doing. I mean, it does lead into the James Gunn or continue on from the James Gunn story. What the hell is going to happen with Batman 2? That's first of all, and then there's also this Arkham series, how it all plays in. Now I know that they say that it looks like what's the movie that they're not going to Joker. So Joker is not going to fall under their banner,
right?
But this kind might. So
I mean, this is an active development, so I'd imagine they're kind of planning out their DC Black Label, where they're having stuff off sides.
That's what I was going to ask you, Coy. Do you think they're going to continue to do that, or they're just going to the projects that they have on the Black Label is just to have it now, but they're going to really focus more on the DCU?
I think that with how big Batman is and how low cost, high profit it is, they are going to continue out their TV shows and the Batman universe separately.
That I know.
Okay, are you saying
I'm talking about
beyond
more because
I think so.
You think so?
I think that
but remember you have you have 4 years.
That's true.
That's what I'm saying. It's like I'm not telling. Like I thought that the DC strategy of, because they were trying to do what Winston said before, where they were like, oh, you know what, Man of Steel did okay, not what we wanted it to do. I love that movie, but it's like it didn't do what we wanted it to. And then we got Ben Affleck, put them in a movie together.
Yeah. And
they rushed it, and the people that were running there was a disaster. They didn't do it right. I actually thought over the last like 4 or 5 years, even though they don't have a, now they do, but they didn't have a DC. You didn't even know what the DCE was.
Right.
But what they were doing were these side projects, Joker, the Batman, I guess the Suicide Squad kind of fits in. I don't know where that, but either way,
technically, I guess if you
because of Harley,
you keep Harley and you keep Amanda Waller, so it's still technically DC.
I guess so. But even all right, so those other two standalones, and you do that. And I thought that was interesting that they were doing that, and I liked that they were doing that. It was like, it reminded me of being a kid reading comics, and I always bring it to you like Meltdown.
Yeah,
it was one of my favorite comics with Havoc and Wolverine, and it was just kind of like a standalone kind of thing that just the same way Logan was kind of like a standalone thing. So. That was because they didn't have they weren't trying to focus in on the DCU. So it was like, oh, let's just make some money while we can. With 4 years with the two of these
as soon as you said 4 years again out loud, I think they're going to focus up. I think it's going to be, it's going to have to be the central thing. And then I think Joker and Batman are the only outside things.
Right.
I think you're right.
Yeah. It's just only because of the time.
It's just so big.
It's because if the three of us were hired to do this, you guys got 4 years and we're sitting around in a room and we're like, okay, we want to do this, and this. And we're like, guys, we don't have enough time to do that.
Sure.
Because remember, one movie you got to, if you're lucky and you rush it, you can get it out in 2 years. Yeah. If you're lucky.
I think here's the main reason you focus solely on the DCU. You let Reeves and Phillips do whatever they want off to the side because it's making you gangbusters.
Right.
You have to.
You'll get the win on it regardless.
But sure, you got Cavill back, but for how long? And it's not because he wouldn't stop wanting to be the character. He is eventually going to age, and then you're going to either have to tell older, like age Superman story. You want to take as much focus on Cavill while he's still prime.
He's probably, what is he, almost 40?
I thought he was like 42 or 43 already.
Is he? Let me see. Let's find. That's Henry Cavill's age. Let's see. I'm going to say he's 38.
I thought he was like 42. I'm
going to go 41.
39.
39. All right.
So you got him. And this
so
guy,
4 years.
And you got him for 10 at least.
No, I get that. But if
50
you
years
if
old,
you,
he can. I mean, come on.
But if you got
like 52 or
whatever. But if you've got 4 years,
that's not true.
Then
like
he'll
48. I'm gonna go Affleck 48.
I think he's 51.
He's 50.
50.
50, okay.
So you know what I'm saying? So like knowing you have him in what you would argue his both acting and probably physical prime. I mean, obviously I'm sure at 25 he would have, but like to be a grown ass Superman, this is his prime.
Sure.
You need to like use that while you can. Same with Gal. I'm sure Gal will want to continue to be Wonder Woman.
Yeah, and Black Adam, I mean, The Rock's 50.
He's 50 something.
Older,
So all of these actors who are signed on to continue to play these characters, you have to focus in and make sure it goes right with them because you want to walk away 4 years from now and go, damn, like we at the very least got in a 2012 Avengers out of this.
Well, and then Crisis and Infinite Earths.
Right, but look at Robert Downey Jr. Robert Downey Jr. was in his early 40s when they signed him. And he played the character until he was 53 years old.
10, 11 years.
So that's you're 100% right. That's exactly what they need to do. And if you're you need to build it out, and especially because the goal for them is probably this. Okay. We put together movies. We got to get one out. Hopefully, if their deal starts on November 1st, 2022, they're going to try to get a movie out, like one of their. I'm not talking about the movies that are ready, not Shazam, not Aquaman, because those things will come out and they'll get some. They'll get and the Flash.
They'll keep them afloat.
They're going to keep them afloat, but their movie that they come up with, you're not going to see until a year left in their deal. So you're probably not going to see one of their movies for like 3 years.
And then how those first 3 movies do is going to determine if they do another 4 years or 5 or whatever.
Because they'd have to develop a movie. They're just starting in November. They develop a movie. They have to sign some people that get thing in production. They have to announce it. So let's say within a year. And then let's say it takes 2 years. It normally takes about 3. But let's say it takes 2. You're looking at 3 years from.
I don't know.
But they're already cast. They're a little ahead.
I don't know.
The universe is already built.
Here's the only reason why I sort of disagree on that, and you might get a little sooner. Because both of them have already had hands. So you said Safran was in Aquaman.
Yep.
And then you had Gunn with both the Suicide Squad and Peacemaker.
Right.
They're already jacked in. So I would not be surprised as part of their interview process pitch us. What do you see? And I think that they might already be in production with that stuff.
And I could see Henry Cavill.
Not shooting. Pre-production.
Scripts.
Okay, so even if they're in pre-production, still, if you look at pre-production, pre-production means they have somebody cast. Is somebody cast, or you're saying pre-production even before cast?
I think not only casting, but they probably have like at least a first draft of one of the projects they want to do.
Fine. So let's say that's the case, right? And let's say that by July, as we said, they're going to announce that project when it comes out. So that's July of 2023.
I think you see something in 2024.
I agree.
You think within
I think late summer 2024.
Is late summer 2024 is when we see one of their original movies.
I think so.
I think so because I truly believe, because they have already been there. I truly believe that they've already kind of positioned something, and that might have been the thing for Zaslav to be.
That's a year and a half away.
Yeah.
I think at Comic-Con
put together a movie.
I think movies pretty deep.
I think if they do that, that's an error.
It's potentially dangerous, but you think about
a year and a half. You can't push a movie out in a year and a half.
Think about the pieces that are already in play. Think about the fact that like we've already talked about the Flash and how all that is and what that's doing. Black Adam. We just got reintroduced to Henry Cavill, Peacemaker, Suicide. All this stuff that they are cutting out, but the stuff that they already are like we have the pieces in there. I would not be surprised if we hear word that all of a sudden by literally as soon as Guardians ends, they're already filming something.
Okay, but even if they start, so you're saying September.
He's not necessarily directing it either, James Gunn.
But
so therefore,
so if they start filming, but again, if it's not TV. TV, you start filming a year beforehand, you have it out in a year. That's not how film works. It's going to be you're going to be looking at least if they have some magical project that they have a script done and they have casting and they have all that done and they start shooting in August of 2023. You think that we're going to get a movie just 1 year later?
I feel like,
and they're going to release it and they'd have to release it because they're
like July,
right? You guys are adding.
We'll see. We'll see.
Let's put a bet. Let's put a bet on
orange. Excuse me.
How much?
Orange bubbly.
Orange bubbly.
How
about $200 steak?
How about Joe's Pizza? Let's be honorable.
I'll do Joe's Pizza
because that's in between prices.
If we get past July 2024,
Joe's Pizza.
Yeah. Fine.
Okay. On that note, I just realized what time it was. I got
August. It'll be the last summer blockbuster. But last summer, truthfully,
then they're doing something wrong. If their first movie out, they're releasing in August, then they're doing something wrong.
Well, last week of July. I'm gonna say last week of July.
August is not a big spot that you want to do your first.
Is it
movie.
not?
They're putting out Blue Beetle at that point, right? I have confidence in that movie, but the reason why it's in August is because it's not a well-known property, right? It's also probably not a super big budget, and they can make a profit on it in August, and it can be in August. Normally, it's May.
It can run the whole theater.
End of April, maybe first week of August.
Okay, I didn't know that. I thought the dead zone was September. I didn't realize that it was August.
Totally dead.
August is not a dead zone, but it's not where all like the big even before the pandemic, it's never where the big sweet spot is. Normally, the sweet spot is. It started to get into like Avengers started coming out in the last
May,
well, the last week of April. And Fast and Furious was coming out in the last week of April, and that will start to happen again as more things come out. But May is the big, no pun intended,
so it's
boom
major
spot.
July
is usually that July 4th weekend was always big, and August, the first week in August, sometimes, but after that, it's like a trickle. Like this year, you got like Beast and other things.
No, I get it. I guess why I was confused about that is because my mindset is that, again, if I felt like they already had something going, giving you just enough of that little runway, I was assuming that you make it as like the last thing you have to see before the kids go back to school. So that's why I was saying
it just weirdly doesn't do well because some people go back to school so early and stuff. But on that note, gents, I got a boogie and I'll let you talk about Wakanda.
We're gonna wrap it up. So actually, we'll talk about Wakanda next time. Stick around for a second. I'll wrap it up. Thank you guys. I just wanted to say for Coy's got to take off. We have so much coverage going to be coming out on Black Panther Wakanda Forever. But make sure once again I'll put the links in the description for Boom and everything else too. Thank you to our friends over at WONDERY and everybody, and thank you to you guys. Make sure you comment, let us know. This was a great conversation because there's so much to talk about, and DC's really heating up. And this is also not only was Coy right where it's going to breed more competition for Marvel, it's going to give us and you guys a lot more to talk about now too. So no chance. 2024
Pizza Party 2024.
All right, thank you guys for joining us. Appreciate you very much. So for the boys, it's me, it's you, it's everybody else. Let's get out of here.